first was I wrote this earlier this year. I'd gone fishing out in California with I'd gone fishing with my best friend, oldest friend in California, trout fishing. And the next day we were walking around, and the poem will tell you what we did. It's titled Two Old Friends. They shambled up the rocky path in the chaparral and through the grove of Manzanita, still thrilled by the rushing Sacramento River. The sky blue in clouds drifting past the late autumn sky, warm enough that day for only 2 layers. The sound of a train echoed down their way before even reaching the tracks they had crossed. It drifted slowly to a stop before them. These 2 men, nearly in their 8th decades, recalled their first when they put pennies on tracks to see them squirt flat. Flusher now, they pulled out a quarter and a dime, sums in their youths that would buy a small boy's feast of Butterfingers paydays and Hires root beer. What must have been a mile of cars lumbered forward again, ka-thunk, 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 squashing their small fortune. When it ended, no caboose, a real disappointment. The pancaked coins had fallen from the tracks into the stones between the rails, and these 2 old men cackled with irony and delight, and with the love only 2 old friends can share as they dug them out from sure oblivion.
Wow.
This poem I wrote when I learned a dear friend of mine had died in December. He was a wonderful guy. His name was Dennis Carney, and he was a world-class fisherman, fly fisherman. Lived in Traverse City, was a school social worker, spent all summers on the rivers, and he was kind and smart and wicked funny and sweet, and I miss him a lot. Dennis. Dying, Dennis asked for final unction. The priest felt blessed to witness the confessions of a minor saint. He held his ear close to hear him ask forgiveness for cursing the black flies that ruined that day on the river. I'm here with my wife and my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and I wrote a poem for their dad some time ago. And my father-in-law, Al's almost 92. He was a bigger-than-life presence in the family. He spent his whole life teaching and being an administrator in Highland Park schools, a passionate, principled, dedicated, loving man. And I wrote this poem for him a number of years ago for Father's Day. And we're slowly losing his presence in the world, but he's still there, he's still with us. But I want to read this for Bob and Lynn and for you. It's titled Al. I title the poems a lot for the people I'm writing for. Dennis, Al. Anyway, 2 old men. I should tell you too, Al was a great ball player. He played softball all the time, and he loved it. He played in Florida after he retired, then he'd come up here and play in leagues, and he was an excellent athlete. And when he was 33, he had a very serious heart attack. And this was 60 years ago when rehabilitation for heart attacks was bed rest. So they just stuck him in a hospital room at Sinai Hospital, looking out over the ball field, if you can believe it. But he said, fuck him, I'm going to play. Which he did. Anyway, he fills the room, not as many men do, all ego and elbows, but with a heart capacious and thrumming that aches so hard to welcome all in that it broke twice, repaired and restored by his grit and his grip on the pulse of the world he swore he'd never leave. Young, hair white with worry and fear, muscles shrunk by misguided advice to lie still for weeks, lest excitement bang its last beat. Told he'd never play again, his hospital room 6 stories over a ball field, the cruelest stroke, a cruelty he never accepted, batting third on the 80 and over league. His blood always richened with the many embraces he wound his arms around, and with the sorrows he endured with grace and wisdom, and still beloved and loving, red as liquid rubies tumbling through 4 hearty chambers. To live for each day like a boy at summer camp, mitt and ball in hand, Florida sun baking, all the AARP boys, aching joints and pubescent souls. Something eternal lives in Al, a sliver of heaven's firmament, the spark of hope that animates us into a future unknown and welcome, the heat that drives the engine down the tracks that brings us to the receding horizon that we never stop reaching for.
Wow.
That's it. And this is the last one for all of us who are partners and spouses and have heard our partners and spouses tell the same story for a long time. Never happened. Who said it? He told the story for 1,000 times. The one that charmed and beguiled me the first time he took me to dinner with my friends. The way they looked at him, warmed by his smooth delivery, amused by the imperceptible delay of the final line that tied all the loose ends of the rambling tale, the line that pulled it all together and sent us all into a sweet reverie. It was the same story he told my family the 3rd time we met, waiting through those first 2 visits, I suppose, to weigh the heft of kind regard, to see if the spark of infatuation would find the kindling of true affection. To see my father lean into him, his eyes fixed on his bright countenance as the tale unfolded. I knew then that this is where he belonged. Years later, at my son's bar mitzvah, sweet wine raised to the heavens above, the guests, many familiar with the arc of the tale, all bathed him in laughter and delight. The many parties, trips with new acquaintances, the new parents at our kids' schools, and even one day the park ranger who guided us out of the hopeless maze of trails back in the Tetons. Graduations, our children's new friends in new cities, and of course, our daughter's wedding, toasting her and the young man upon whom he gazed with the same guileless love and acceptance that my father, those many years ago, had cast upon him. The same loose ends tied with simple elegance and a master's timing that charms with the same warmth and laughter that runs back more years than I care to remember. It was 1,000 times. So you do understand, don't you, officer?